This duality is self-evident. Without any philosophy at all, by the mere force of experience, it is what we can all perceive, although we may not take the trouble to define. Even the most thoroughgoing materialism, which denies the soul and resolves it into a more or less illusory result of natural phenomena, acting upon some ill-explained phenomenon of the physical brain, which we call consciousness or the mind, but which is really no more than a sort of a complexity of nervous spasms, cannot get rid of the practical fact of this duality. It does not matter at all how it came about. The fact is not only there, it determines our whole existence. It is the one fact which is really important to us as human beings with a will and an intelligence and a subjective existence, which makes all our happiness and our suffering. The whole problem of life resolves itself into this one question. What are we to do with this soul and nature set face to face with each other? We who have as one side of our existence this nature, this personal and cosmic activity, which it tries to impress itself upon the soul, to possess, control, determine it, and as the other side, this soul, which it feels that in some mysterious way it has a freedom, a control over itself, a responsibility for what it is and does, and tries therefore to turn upon nature, its own and the world's, and to control, possess, enjoy, or even, it may be, reject and escape from her. In order to answer that question, we have to know what the soul can do, to know what it can do with itself, to know too what it can do with nature and the world. The whole of human philosophy, religion, science is really nothing but an attempt to get at the right data upon which it will be possible to answer the question and solve as satisfactorily as our knowledge will allow the problem of our existence.
Yeah. So, here we'll go very carefully into the words what he's saying, because he's saying that everybody is conscious that there is a Prakriti and a Purusha. Although you don't define it to yourself. It's a very vague feeling. But however vague the feeling, we are conscious that we have a body and a mind and a life, not absolutely in this way, but we feel that there is our nature. But there is something in us which is determining all these things. We have a thinking, we have a will, we can even force ourselves to do some things. So you are conscious of your outer and unconsciously conscious of your outer nature and your inner nature. So Srimati is saying very clearly, look at the words, okay? This duality is self-evident. Without any philosophy at all, without thinking, without any analytical notion and everything, by the mere force of experience, it is what we can all perceive. Very simple things. For instance, we feel that when you are hungry, you need to eat. So there is something in you which says you have to eat. You are not conscious that it's the body asking you to eat. So you are conscious of the body, and yet you feel that there is a will and a determining factor, a thought in you. So that thought is what actually the Purusha is, but you are not conscious of it and you are not defining it to yourself. It's a very vague feeling that there are two things in you. You don't define it very clearly. So Srimati is saying, if you look a little carefully, you will see that there are two aspects in you. One is the outer aspect and the other is the... So even when we have, for instance, an emotion, okay, we try to control it. So who is trying to control? There is something that is trying to control, okay. When you get angry with somebody, there is someone who is getting angry. And the body-mind life is not getting angry, you get angry. Okay, so there is a very vague feeling that yes, there are two things in you. So I'm saying very clearly, although we may not take the trouble to define it, but if you are very mentally developed, you will find that yes, there are two things. The body-mind life is there and our emotions are different from the body-mind life. Okay, so even the most thoroughgoing materialism, which denies the soul or resolves it into a more or less illusory result of natural phenomena, acting upon some ill-explained phenomenon of the physical brain, which we call consciousness of the mind or the mind, but which is really no more than a sort of complexity of nervous spasms, cannot get rid of the practical fact of this duality. He's saying that even the most material man who explains emotions and thoughts, okay, he will tell you, oh, emotions and thoughts are, you say, not physical. No, no, they are all coming from matter only. They are coming from your brain. Your brain is producing emotions and thoughts. Okay. Of course, this is not the truth. The truth is that the consciousness creates the mind and the life. It's the other way around. But materialism is looking at it from above. And so look at the words clearly. Okay. Ill-explained phenomena. The materialist is explaining your phenomena by saying the physical brain is the cause of your emotions and your thoughts. But it is ill-explained. It doesn't explain everything properly because the real truth is the opposite, which we call consciousness or the mind. Now that's another thing. We are constantly associating our consciousness with the mind, which is not true. Okay, there is a mental consciousness, there is a vital consciousness, even a physical consciousness. So that also is very clear, or the mind. Okay, but which is really no more than a sort of complexity of nervous spasms. So what is your brain? It is nothing but a body mind life, which is a complexity. It's a combination of nervous spasms. Okay, the nerves are connecting your body with the brain, and it's just that cannot get rid of the practical fact of the duality. However physical you are, and however you say that there is no soul, still very, very vaguely you are conscious that there are two elements in you. You may not define it, you may not even agree, but there is something in you which says that yes, there is Purusha and Prakriti, matter and soul. Okay? But they will not say matter and soul. They will explain it in a very bad way, but you are conscious that there are two things in you. For instance, just to give one example, how you can be conscious, it's not your body that is telling you that I want to study. It is yourself. You say, I want to study. I want to go here. I want to go there. It's not the body telling you. Therefore, there are two things. Okay. The one that decides things and the one that obeys. Okay. It does not matter at all how it came about. Certainly is now being very, very, he is telling you the actual fact of recognizing, everybody recognizes that there are two things in you without defining it. The fact is not only there, it determines our whole existence. Sorry. It is the one fact which is really important to us as human beings with a will and an intelligence. We are all conscious that we have a will and an intelligence and a subjective existence which makes all our happiness and our suffering. Okay, so we are conscious that there are two. It's a very important thing. So now the problem is, the whole problem of life resolves into this one question. What are we to do with this soul and nature set face to face with each other? So, having admitted that there are two elements in you, what are we to do with these two things? This nature, this personal and cosmic activity which tries to impress itself upon the soul, to possess, control, determine it, and this soul which feels that, oh, there is a text which is missing in mine. Okay, so, okay, I'll try and include it. Cosmic activity which we have, I will not include the text as because I have the book and I don't exactly know where it is sitting. So you just follow, okay? Unfortunately, my CWSA is not working today properly. I have to set it right. Okay, so I'm reading whatever is there in my book. Okay. What are we to do with this soul and nature set face to face with each other? Okay, and there is this insertion here, and that insertion is we who have as one side of our existence this nature. Okay, so this nature, this personal and cosmic activity which tries to impress itself upon the soul, okay, to possess, control, determine it. Is it not true that we are trying to always control our emotions, control our thoughts? So it is trying to, the body mind life is trying to impose itself on the soul. And this Again, there's a, as the other side, this soul which feels that in some mysterious way it has a freedom, a control over itself, a responsibility for what it is and does. Now, this is what we feel. Spiritually, it is not true. But when you are identified with your body, mind, life, there is a very, very good feeling that you are responsible for your actions. Okay? Because if that is not there, you will justify stealing, you will justify murder. So you are responsible for your actions so long as you are identified with your body, mind, life. The moment you are not identified with your body, mind, life, you realize that it is not your responsibility. It is the nature which is doing things in you. Okay. So it's a very interesting thing. You'll have to think about it deeply and also think about the Gita. The Arjuna, the disciple, is saying that I am responsible for what I am going to do and I will refuse to kill my own people. Why own my people? I won't refuse to kill anybody. If it is necessary as a Kshatriya, I'll do that, but not without cause. But Arjuna, Sri Krishna tells him, go to a level of consciousness where you realize that you are not responsible for your actions and become an instrument of the divine, and he will tell you what to do and not to do. All your moral ideas will fail. You will do exactly what he wants. You have to rise to that next level. But so long as you are identified with your body, mind, life, it is absolutely valid and true that you have a responsibility. What you do, you are solely responsible yourself. Okay? And tries therefore to turn upon nature, its own and the world's, to control, possess, enjoy, or even it may be reject and escape from her. Now, last adding this, or even it may be reject and escape from her. Why is he saying this? Because the ascetic becomes very, very conscious that he has a soul and his soul is trapped in the body, mind, life, and they are different. So the last phrase here, you are conscious. In the beginning of the para, he is saying that you are not conscious but vaguely conscious. Now, if you are very conscious, you want to get away from it. And therefore, you want to escape. He is referring to the ascetic who, and the consciousness which is awakened, and you see that you are pure soul and you have to get out of your prison house of body, mind, life. That's why he's saying, or even it may be. Mostly it is not. That's why Swami is saying even. Most of us are not even aware that our soul is there. But we have a vague feeling of two things, a will and a freedom inside, and a body, mind, life outside. Okay. So, in order to answer that question of what? What to do with these two things? The body, mind, life and the free consciousness within yourself. I'm not even using the word soul. Free consciousness within yourself, which has a will and which has a resolution which can decide what it wants to do. We have to know what the soul can do, to know what it can do with itself, to know too what it can do with nature and the world. So we have to realize we have to first of all get the knowledge of what the soul is and what it is capable of, what are its capacities, and can it act upon the nature? That's what we have to know. That's what he's saying. Now he's saying the whole of human philosophy, religion, science is really nothing but an attempt to get at the right data upon which it will be possible to answer this question and solve as satisfactorily as our knowledge will allow the problem of our existence. It is such a slow progress. Okay. Now, at the individual level, many human beings have realized that they are really soul because you can get a glimpse of it sometimes. Rare, but still it is possible. You have a soul and your body, mind, life is not you. Okay, so that is different. But he's saying philosophy and religion, but he's also including science. Okay, and that's interesting because science is really nothing but an attempt to get at the right data upon which it will be possible to answer this question and solve as satisfactorily as our consciousness will allow the problem of our existence. So when did science become conscious that there is a outer nature and there is a consciousness which is separate from it? The whole movement started with the quantum theory. When they realize that consciousness is more important than the physical world. Okay? So that's what Srimad is referring to here. You realize, science has realized that there are two things, a consciousness, which is, and the nature of the consciousness was not understood. They used to think that the consciousness is produced by the brain, but slowly now they realize that consciousness is something fundamental. It is not produced by the brain. Okay, so this is what Srimad is saying. So the whole question is, what is soul and what is nature, and what is the relation between them? Who is having influence on whom? Okay. This is the whole question. Clear, na? So now he says, we'll read the next one. This is a small paragraph. Who will read? Geeta was saying that she can read.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. The hope of a complete escape.
The hope of complete escape from our present strife with and subjection to our lower and troubled nature and existence arises when we perceive what religion and philosophy affirm. But modern thought has tried to deny that there are two poises of our soul existence, a lower troubled and subjected, a higher supreme untroubled and sovereign, one vibrant in mind, the other tranquil in spirit. The hope not only of an escape, but of a completely satisfying and victorious solution comes when we perceive what some religions and philosophies affirm, but others seem to deny, that there is also in the dual unity of soul and nature a lower, an ordinary human status, and a higher, a divine, for it is in the divine alone that the conditions of the duality stand reversed. There the soul becomes that which now it only struggles and aspires to be, master of its nature, free and by union with the divine possessor also of the world nature. According to our idea of these possibilities will be the solution we shall attempt to realize.
Very clear, and we'll make when we look at the word, you will see how Srimad is so clear about what he's saying. But we are so far away from these truths that sometimes it is confusing. Even when Srimad is clear, we are confused. So we'll go through each and every. The hope of a complete escape from our present strife with and subjection to our lower and troubled nature. So he has already come to it that whether it be philosophy or religion or even science, we have realized that there are two things in us. There is a nature and there is a consciousness. Don't even call it a soul. It's a consciousness. Okay? That consciousness actually is the soul in individuals, but it's not the soul in the universe. It is a consciousness. Or Srimad use the word all soul, okay, which is universal. Always remember that these two things are connected intimately with one another, the individual and the cosmos. The cosmos creates the individual. Our body is created by matter, our vital is created by the universal plane of prana, and our mind is created by the universal mental plane of thought. Okay? These are all worlds which exist, and out of that world a little bit of substance is taken, mental substance is taken, and our mind is made. A little pranic substance is taken and our vital is made. At the end of our life, these formations disappear. They dissolve and go back into the origin from where they came. Just like our body goes back into matter. Exactly the same, our vital dissolves and goes back into universal prana. So, he is saying now, the hope of a complete escape from our present strife and subjection to. So you realize that your body is subjecting you to its own needs. You have to sleep when you feel tired. The body is dictating terms to you. When you are hungry, you have to eat. There is no escape. You are a prisoner. Okay? We don't see it in that way, but it is a fact. Our lower and troubled nature and existence arises when we perceive what religion and philosophy affirm, but modern thought has tried to deny, okay, that there is no soul. But religion and philosophy assert that there is a soul, that there are two poises of our soul existence, but that soul also has got two poises. One is imprisoned in body-mind life, and the other is free from body-mind life. When it escapes from the what is called the mukti, liberation, or the moksha, when you are not subjected to your body-mind life, that there are two poises of our soul existence, a lower troubled and subjected, in which the soul is trapped in the body-mind life, and a higher, supreme, untroubled and sovereign. Okay. In the one, you are subject to your emotions and your troubles and your pain and sufferings. But in the other one, higher up, you are not troubled at all. This is the image in the Shvetashvatara Upanishads and many other Upanishads also, that your soul is a bird. The bird is often used as a symbol of the soul. Usually it is also the swan. That's why Ramakrishna is known as Paramahamsa. Okay? Paramahamsa. So the soul is a bird. When it is sitting on the lower branches, it is identified with body, mind, life and suffering. Okay? It eats the fruit of the tree, it enjoys the fruits of the tree but also suffers. But that same bird, when it is sitting on a higher branch, okay, it is free. And that higher bird looks down at the lower bird and feels sorry for it. But it is itself not troubled. That's the image in the Upanishad. And here Srimba is giving you that. Okay, so a higher one is lower, troubled and subjected. When your body, when your soul is identified with the body, mind, life, you are troubled and subjected. The higher supreme, when the soul escapes from the body, mind, life, goes to the spiritual planes of consciousness and becomes untroubled. Okay, calm, peace, total featurelessness and total sense of infinity and freedom and eternity. You also realize that you are immortal and sovereign. Sovereign means, the word sovereign is very interesting. Okay, sovereign means not subject to anybody else. India under the British was not sovereign, but now when it is independent, it's a sovereign nation. Okay, so you become sovereign. You don't depend on anybody else. The soul realizes that it is self-existent. Okay. Now, again he is describing the two. One vibrant in mind. Which is this one? The one which is identified with your body, mind, life. It is vibrant, but it is in mind. The other tranquil in spirit, the higher one. He is describing the two birds. Look, in 2-3 phrases. A lower and a higher. The lower is troubled and the higher is untroubled. The one is vibrant in mind. Vibrant means moving. Okay, vibrant, vibration. It is moving and always in activity. But the other one, tranquil, no movement at all. One is in a Kshara consciousness and the other is the Akshara consciousness. Okay, all these words you will understand very clearly what he is saying. The hope not only of an escape, but of a completely satisfying and victorious solution comes when we perceive what some religions and philosophies affirm, but others seem to deny. Okay, he is talking. I will tell which religions and philosophies affirm and which deny. That there is also a dual unity of soul and nature, a lower and an ordinary human status and a higher, a divine, in which the conditions of the duality are reversed. The conditions of the duality, in the lower, the body-mind life is dominating the soul. Or if you want to put it in words, Prakriti is sitting tight on and controlling the consciousness. The consciousness is absolutely subjected to the body-mind life, the Prakriti. But the conditions are reversed. At the highest level, consciousness possesses the Prakriti. Consciousness means your Purusha possesses the Quant. It's reversed. Okay. I remind you of the Vasadatta. Okay. The Vasadatta in the beginning says, I will control Vatsa. Okay. I will bring him under I'll make him love me. But in the end, what happens? It is she who falls in love with him, and Vatsa controls her, not with violence, but with love and calmness. He completely controls her. That is the symbol. Okay? And the soul becomes that which now it only struggles and aspires to be. And what does it aspire to be? Master of its nature. We are always trying to master our nature. We are also in science also we are trying to master the external nature, free and by union with the divine, possessor also of the world nature. So some philosophies deny that and some philosophies agree with that. That's what he's saying. What do they agree with? That there are two aspects. Okay? There is a dual unity of soul and nature. Okay? A lower and ordinary human status and a divine is the condition of duality reversed. The Sankhya philosophy says that Purusha and Prakriti can never be one. So that's what he is referring to. They deny the duality. The duality is permanent, they say. But there are other philosophies which say, the Advaita philosophy, which says that no, at the highest level, Purusha and Prakriti, they are one. They are not separate at all. They are absolutely one. Ishvara and his power. Okay. Purusha, Prakriti. So they are absolutely. Ishvara and Shakti, they are one. Like the sun and its power to give heat. They are one. They are not separable. You can't think of the sun without its heat and light. So that you experience it only at the higher level. At the lower level, you can think of two. That's what he's saying. Clear? So very clearly he is establishing that there are two poises of the soul, but note interestingly also that there are two poises of the Prakriti also. At the lower level, Prakriti is mechanical and unconscious. But at the highest level, it is fully conscious and not at all mechanical. It has a free will. Okay. So this is what Sridhar is saying in this para. Okay. So now we can go to the next one. Involved in mind. And there are these spiritual theories and mundane theories of the soul and nature. I will make a chart and send them to you. I think I told you that last time also, but I have not yet done it. Or I may have done it, I'll have to look for it. But I'll do that and send it to you. It will be very clear because one child was telling me that all these philosophies are all very confusing. I don't know who is saying what. So this chart will explain to you which philosophy is saying what. Okay. So there are two series. Those two I will take time and do it when I can. Right. So let's read the next one. We have time. We have 10 minutes. Maybe a little more even. Involved in mind.
Okay,
Now,
good evening.
yes, Archana, please.
Involved in mind, possessed by the ordinary phenomena of mental thought, sensation, emotion, perception of the vital and physical impacts of the world, and mechanical reaction to them, the soul is subject to nature. Even its will and intelligence are determined by its mental nature, determined even more largely by the mental nature of its environment, which acts upon subtly or as well as overtly and overcomes the individual mentality. Thus, its attempt to regulate, to control, to determine its own experience and action is pursued by an element of illusion. Since when it thinks it is acting, it is really nature that is acting and determining all it thinks, wills, and does. If there were not this constant knowledge in it that it exists in itself, is not the body or life, but something other which at least receives and accepts the cosmic experience. If it does not determine it, it would be compelled in the end to suppose that nature is all and the soul an illusion. This is the conclusion modern materialism affirms, and to that nihilistic Buddhism arrived. The Sankhya's, perceiving the dilemma, solved it by saying that the soul in fact only mirrors nature's determinations and itself determines nothing, is not the Lord, but can by refusing to mirror them fall back into eternal immobility and peace. There are two the other solutions which arrive at the same practical conclusion, but from the other end, the spiritual. For they affirm either that nature is an illusion or that both the soul and nature are impermanent, and they point us to a state beyond in which their duality has no existence. Either they cease by the extinction of both in something permanent and ineffable, or their discordances end by the exclusion of the active principle altogether. Though they do not satisfy humanity's larger hope and deep-seated impulse and aspiration, these are valid solutions so far as they go, or they arrive at an absolute in itself or at the separate absolute of the soul, even if they reject the many rapturous infinities of the absolute, which the true position of nature by the soul in its divine existence offers to the eternal seeker in man.
Okay, so again, Surendra is putting his own philosophy, and we'll have to look at it very carefully. We'll try and do that, but we'll certainly not be able to finish the para today because it's very, you have to go into very detail to understand. Okay, involved in mind. Now tell me, when the soul is involved in mind, it is in the lower status. Okay, very clear. It is identified with the mind. Surendra is saying only mind, but it's also identified with the vital and the body. But if you are a very intelligent person, you can remain involved in mind only. Okay, like the Cartesian philosophy. I think, therefore I am. Okay, you can slightly more better than the average ordinary man who thinks that he is the body. So even if you are involved in mind, possessed by the ordinary phenomenon of mental thought, sensation, emotion, reception of the vital and physical impacts of the world, and mechanical reaction to them, the soul is subject to nature. Okay, very clear. And when you are involved in mind and you are receiving the impacts of the physical world through thought, others' thoughts are entering into you. You are not conscious of it, but it's entering into you. Other sensations are also entering into you. Okay, this is very clear. What is meant by sensation? Okay, when you taste something from outside, you are eating something, it is coming from the physical world, it's not in you. So you are getting the sensations, okay, pleasant and unpleasant. If you touch something which is hot, you will feel a sensation. So the physical world is acting on you through sensation, but also emotion. When someone says very soothing words to you, you will feel happy. But if someone says something angrily and criticizes you, you will feel anger and sorrow. So the outside world is having an impact on you. The reception of the vital and physical impacts of the world. Okay? You are receiving the vital and physical impacts of the world and mechanical reaction to them. You are subjected to the reactions to happen. Pleasant things make you pleasant, unpleasant things make you unpleasant. Okay? The soul is subject to nature. So long as you are to put the whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, 4 lines, when the soul is identified with body, mind, life, you are subject to nature. Nature is dominating you and you have no freedom. Very clear. Okay. Even its will and intelligence are determined by the mental nature. Okay. You think that you are thinking freely and you are having intelligence and you are deciding things and you have a will, but it is not true. It is actually being determined by your mental nature. Your mental nature is a small formation of universal nature, which he will tell you later on slightly. Determined even more largely by the mental nature of its environment. So now tell me, this whole sentence, phrase, determined even more largely by the mental nature of its environment. So what's he saying? He's saying the universal mind. The universal mind working through your individual mind is creating thoughts in you without your being conscious of it. Okay, clear? Even its will and intelligence are determined by its mental nature, the individual mental nature. But that individual mental nature is determined even more largely by the mental nature of its environment. In other words, there's a universal mind, and the universal mind is sending thoughts into your individual mind, and you think that you are thinking. Not true at all. Okay? The universal mind is making your individual mind dance to its own tune. That is what is happening, which acts upon subtly as well as overtly and overcomes the individual mentality. Sometimes you can be conscious that thoughts are entering into your mind. Okay, this is an example which I always give to the students. When a teacher asks a class of 10 people a question, okay, You think of the answer and you are about to answer when the same answer is given by somebody else before you can do that. Then you realize, if you are very intelligent, you will realize that there is a solution was there in the atmosphere, and he has caught the atmosphere and you have caught the atmosphere. Okay, you have caught the thought. So the other one is speaking out before you. So there is a thought which is there outside you and outside the other. That's it. What he's saying, environment, mental nature of the environment. Okay. So this can go to such an extent that even emotions can enter into you. In fact, Sri Aurobindo says, Mother also says that anger, jealousy, you can be contagious. They can be contagious. Someone's wrong thoughts can enter into you and influence you. Someone's energy level, which is very low, can also enter into you and make you feel weak. That is the reason why satsang is advised. Okay? Associate always with the right people, because when you are associating yourself with the wrong people, their vibrations, their thoughts, their emotions will enter into you and affect you. Unless you are very, very firmly established in your own being. But that's not very common. Okay? Subtly as well as overtly, and overcomes the individual mentality. Okay? Now tell me, he is using two words, subtly as well as overtly. Okay? Suppose someone tells you something, okay, and even if you don't agree with it, subtly it's going to have an effect on you. Okay? So you may not agree with the person. He will say such and such is like this. You may not agree, but inside you are affected subtly. As well as overtly, you may agree fully with him overtly. Okay, so how inclusive Sri Aurobindo is about all the words that he uses, and overcomes the individual mentality. The individual mentality is governed and subjected to the universal mentality. The environment is always entering into you, and you are not even conscious of it. Okay, Mother uses words. You are as though you are in a marketplace. Okay, and all the forces of the market are entering into you. It's very interesting. Okay, I think I told you once. Okay, it's a very interesting thing. Okay, I had a dream once in which I have gone out of my house, and when I come into my house, I see that the house, there is a wild party going on in my house, and I don't know any of these people, and I get very angry and I say, how the hell did you enter into my house? Who the hell are you? Get out. I don't want this nonsense here. I didn't understand at that time what the dream meant, but this is the image. Okay, you are constantly being invaded by all sorts of forces of which you are not even conscious. They come and occupy your being. Okay, Sri Aurobindo uses the word unwanted guests in Savitri. Okay, they come and usurp your own being. So this is what is happening. We're not conscious of it, but that is what happens. Okay, so since it is really and also to control, determine its own experience and action is pursued by an element of illusion. You think that you are controlling, but that's an illusion. Since when it thinks, it is acting, it is really nature that is acting and determining all it thinks, wills and does. This is what is meant by you are a prisoner of your body, mind, life, which is the individual body, individual vital, individual mind. And these individual mind, body, life are subjected to the universal matter, universal prana, universal mind. Okay? This is what he's saying. If there were not this constant knowledge in it that it is, that it exists in itself, is not the body or life, but something other, which at least receives and accepts the cosmic experience, if it does not determine it, it would be compelled in the end to suppose that nature is all and the soul is an illusion. So when you are completely identified with your body, mind, life, and you are not conscious of the soul, you will see matter is the only reality. This is the conclusion modern materialism affirms. We have got 4 minutes more. This is the conclusion that modern materialism affirms, and to that nihilistic Buddhism arrived. Note, Sri Aurobindo is very clearly nihilistic Buddhism. The negative Buddhism. There are two branches of Buddhism, okay? Hinayana and Mahayana. So There is one aspect which says the world is what is determining you. You are determined, you have no freedom. The Sankhya philosophy where Purusha and Prakriti concept is originating. Perceiving the dilemma, solved it by saying that the soul in fact only mirrors nature's determinations and itself determines nothing, is not the Lord, but can, by refusing to mirror them, fall into eternal immobility and peace. So, Sankhya is saying, first of all, what is the dilemma? The dilemma is nature controlling soul or is soul controlling nature? Okay? The materialistic says there is no question of soul. The matter is determining your consciousness and your emotions. They are very clear about it. This is the conclusion modern materialism affirms and nihilistic Buddhism arrived at. This Sankhyas perceiving the dilemma of which is controlling which, okay, solved it by saying that in the lower stratus, I'm using different words, in the lower stratus, the soul is prisoner of the body-mind life. Okay? And it is so identified with the body-mind life that it thinks that all the actions of the body and the emotions of the vital and the thoughts in the mind are its own, which is not a fact. Okay? But is not Lord. But can in Sankhya philosophy, can you separate and get rid of this illusion? Yes, it can. Because it refuses to mirror them, fall back into eternal immobility and peace. The soul can escape from the grip of nature and become free. This is the Sankhya philosophy. Okay? But they are two separate. In the lower one, they are identified with each other, but in the higher one, the soul is free. Yet there is a Prakriti. Okay. Purusha is there and Prakriti is there. There are two other solutions which arrive at the same practical conclusion, but from the other end. Which is the other end? The higher. The lower end is what he has been talking about, but from the other end. Okay? The spiritual, for they affirm nature as an illusion, or both the soul and nature as impermanent and pointing us to a state beyond, in which the duality has no existence, either by the extinction of both in something permanent and ineffable, or at least by the exclusion of the active principle altogether. Though they do not satisfy humanity's larger hope and deep-seated impulse and aspiration, these are valid solutions so far as they go. In other words, depends on the plane of consciousness that you are. This last portion, okay, we will redo this last portion, exactly what he is saying. I will have to formulate them very clearly and we'll do this last portion next time. Okay. Though they do not satisfy humanity's larger hope and deep-seated impulse. Which is that? That is larger hope and deep-seated impulse. The soul must be absolutely master of Prakriti. That is the solution that man is very unconsciously seeking. And when is that possible? Only in the supramental world and aspiration. These are valid solutions. It is true that you can escape from, and it is satisfactory enough so far as it goes. For they arrive at an absolute in itself. There is a Buddhistic as well as the Advaita philosophy, which says that you can get rid of body-mind life and go to the absolute, or at the separate absolute of the soul. That's interesting. Okay. Even if they reject the many rapturous infinites of the absolute, which the true possession of nature by the soul in its divine existence offers to the eternal seeker in man. I'll just briefly, it's 40, but I'll just briefly tell you what he's saying here. He's saying that the Buddhistic solution, the Advaitic solution, gets rid of the Mayavada solution. They get rid of body-mind life and disappear into the infinite. This is one possibility. Look at the words very carefully, okay? They arrive at an absolute in itself. In other words, individuality disappears completely. But the individual also can exist and experience the peace and infinity, or at the separate absolute of the soul. See that? So when the separate absolute of the soul means that the soul is conscious of its individuality, yet it experiences the infinity and the eternity. So two possibilities. When you escape from your body-mind life, you can decide to disappear into the infinite without the individuality. No more soul, no more Archanadi soul, no more Gitanjali soul, no more Jasmine soul. This has disappeared completely. But on the other hand, the Archana soul or Gitanjali soul and Jasmine soul can determine I want to experience, but I don't want to lose my individuality. That also is possible. That's what he's saying in these words. Very clear. See, absolute in itself, okay, no individuality at all. Or the separate absolute of the soul, individuality is there, but you are in the absolute. Okay. Even if they reject the many rapturous infinites of the absolute. What does they mean by that? The rapturous infinites of the absolute are, why do you want to reject all the beauty that the world can offer you? There is a higher mind, there's an illumined mind, there's an intuitive mind and an over mind, and they're absolutely marvelous. Why do you want to escape all this? Go through all this and enjoy this. That's what Srinath is saying. Which the true possession of nature by the soul in its divine existence offers to the eternal seeker and man. Nature is saying you can experience all this beauty of nature. Don't disappear into the infinite and get it. If you want to do that, you are welcome. But I prefer to enjoy all the infinities of nature. That's what he said. Okay? So, we can stop here today. Next time, as I told you, I'll make that last bit a little clear to myself and to you next time. I'll try and do that. And also I'll try and make these charts of the ego, or rather the spiritual theories of soul and nature. Okay?
I have a question. Can I ask now?
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, go ahead, ask me. Okay, au revoir
When
everybody.
you are telling that the vibration of everybody affect us,
Yes.
and so isn't it good that for the, like Rishi Arinda was also spent 20 years in one room, aloof, and mother was taking care of everything. So isn't it good that we, as a commoner and as at a very low level, we should also minimize our social group or socializing to the minimum, so that we don't get so much vibration.
Okay, I understand your question. But Srinath is saying if you do that, okay, it becomes easier. Certainly. And that is what the ascetic is doing. He runs away to the cave or the Himalayas or the forest. But Srinath is saying when you do that, you are not having a complete solution. Now, so your question is a very valid one.
But in the beginning, when we want to do and we cannot do, because if we are live in the same house, social life, then we cannot do it. So for to break that thing, if we go out and enjoy that phase, then we come back. Then naturally, all these things will not affect us. No.
That is one solution. But Srinath is saying a more comprehensive solution would be not to run away from the world. It is much more difficult, he admits. It is much more difficult, but more fulfilling afterwards. That's what he's saying. But if one particular soul wants to do what you're saying, okay, that is valid. In fact, he does not disapprove of the ascetic running away. Okay. So what you're saying is, it's a possibility, certainly. But it depends on what you want to do. Okay, some people don't want to do that. Some people want to do that. Very few want to do what Srinath is saying. It is true what you're saying. Okay.
Because we are not so much at our consciousness level is not so high that we can do everything on our. We want to break somewhere, so that is the reason why people come to ashram and stay here and listen to the talk, so that they cut off from their all the normal social life.
As I told you, that is one. It is valid, but it is one solution. There can be other solutions also.
Yeah, there are multiple solutions depend upon your one's capacity.
Exactly. No? So it depends on the individual. So both are right, what you're saying. And if the other ones also say that, no, I don't want to lose my contact with the world, but I will try. It's a more difficult and longer path, but I don't mind. That is also another solution. That is the solution. Okay?
Okay. You know, when the ashram started after 1926, and people used to write questions to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo used to always say it's not good to keep contact with X or P or Y.
Yeah.
So, and very often people even ask mother, and she would also say, okay, no, you should be more to yourself and don't be under the influence of P or X or Y.
Okay.
Because at that time, the sadhana was very intense.
Yes, you are
But
right.
nowadays, I mean, each one's sadhana is going to fluctuate up and down. So you can't
Absolutely.
have one fixed rule for anything. It is you from within who will feel, okay, X, if I talk to X, I don't get good vibes from him. So I'm not likely to associate. But
Okay.
Y has good vibrations. For example, if I go to Amal and I talk to him, then he's going to solve my problems, tell me where I am wrong.
No,
So
you are not wrong. You are not wrong. It depends on you. So that is exactly what I'm saying. That Sri Aurobindo, when someone asks Sri Aurobindo, should I lead a social life or should I separate myself? Sri Aurobindo will look at his nature and say, no, it is better for you. You are too outward going. So restrict yourself to your own room. Okay, so one, he will say that. But someone who has an ascetic tendency, Sri Aurobindo said exactly the opposite. No, you have to conquer your, and because the middle path is always the right one, and so you have to associate more with the others. This idea of segregating yourself is not a very good one for you. It depends on the individual. So Yasmin, what you're saying is absolutely right, but it depends on the individual nature. Some people need to restrict their social activities. Some people, when they are too ascetic, need to associate themselves more with the world. So both are true. Depends on the individual. I remember very clearly in the letters, someone saying that no, Sri says that you are too ascetic and too withdrawn. It is better you mix with the others as far as possible. Okay. Yeah. So it depends on each individual. In fact,
But
this is. Yeah. Tell me.
Mother has restricted students and teachers from going out from the for the vacation also, no? She wants everybody to stay here
Listen, I'll
because
tell
of
you.
this vibration matters only, no?
Yes, but tell me, when mother is there with her protection, okay, this is
Okay.
absolutely valid. She does not want you to be subjected to outside influences. Now, what is the situation? There is a TV, there is a phone, and you can get whatever you want on your phone without going out of your house. So
Yes.
conditions have changed entirely. So it is now up to you to exercise your discrimination and associate or not associate with what you want to do. Okay.
It become more difficult for us now.
Yes, exactly. Okay, that's exactly the thing. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
when technology is the master,
Ah,
disaster comes faster.
yes. So it's an advantage as well as a disadvantage. As Sri Aurobindo says, when you have a phone, you don't need to walk 100 miles to talk to somebody. When you have a washing machine, you don't have to spend 1 hour washing your clothes. So it's a great advantage. At the same time, if the phone breaks down, you suffer. So it's a servitude. It's a advantage, but you become a slave. You become a slave to the advantage. Okay. So same thing applies in our ordinary life also. We have to use our discrimination. If mother is there, it's a totally, she is there. But when she is there physically, it is different from when she is there subtly. Because it's more difficult for us to access that. But if you are individually conscious of it, certainly you can access her presence in the subtle. But presence in the physical and presence in the subtle, there is a big difference. Okay. Those who go on saying very glibly and very easily, a mother is there always. It is not absolute truth. She is there, but in the subtle world. She is not there in the physical world to guide you. Okay. So it is true that she is there everywhere. But are you open to that? That's the whole question. It's
You
like
know, people like you who grew
a.
up in the ashram
Yes.
and were in touch with her, you all were more dependent on her physically. But people like us who were like, I wasn't even born in Sri Aurobindo's time, and I never ever met the mother. So to us, it makes no difference because we never ever met her physically and asked her questions.
Yeah.
So like, coming to the ashram itself, we feel her presence.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Yes.
So, and regarding the vacation, if you see even today, sometimes when children go away during their holidays, they always tend to fall sick in the outside atmosphere.
Yes, yes. What you're saying is absolutely true. There is one child who absolutely refuses to go out, and her family is insisting that she goes out. And when she comes back, she told me very clearly that she falls ill. Okay? She falls ill and she doesn't want to go out, but the family is saying, how can you not see your parents? How can you not see your father? How can you not see your grandmother? You have to come out. They force the child to go out, not realizing that they are actually harming them. Okay. But again, it depends on the individual. But what you're saying is true. Absolutely true. Okay. So let me just point out one thing. Of course, if you are in the unbelievable good fortune of having come in contact with a living avatar or even a yogi, you are very, very fortunate. But that fortune is determined by your past development of your soul. But at the same time, it does not mean that the others are at a disadvantage. What about the 100,000 yogis who have never known mother or no? They have also reached some level. So it's a question of development of the individual soul. Nobody is denied. Okay? This is something that you have to realize. You need not feel, oh, I was not fortunate enough to come in contact with the mother. There's a partial truth in it. But the truth is that you can determine your own future. You can determine what you want to do. Okay? So, all right, we have gone very much past our time. Okay, so.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, au revoir.
Merci beaucoup, Rangada.
Thank you, Rangada.
Yeah.